Hello everybody and welcome to Amphlett Reviews, back with a Hong Kong content review, doing a double bill review for The Legend of Fong Sai Yuk, starring Jet Li, directed by Curry Yoon, who did both of these films within the year of 1993. Big year for Jet Li, doing quite a few films. I've also reviewed two of his movies recently from the same year, with The Kung Fu Master and Last Year of China. So Jet Li was on fire and he was making a lot of these period kind of folktale action martial arts extraordinaire films, and there's definitely some highs and some lows during that kind of year. I definitely think there's a few that have been better than others, absolutely for sure. And this one has been on my list to check out for quite some time, and I figured finally, because I'm on a bit of a Jet Li kind of mood, I want to check out more of his movies, is the perfect opportunity to check out both these films and do a double bill review for you guys. So this is a US import release, which features both films. You get a nice slipcase edition. Funny enough though, the distribution company for this isn't actually featured on the Blu-ray, which is weird. I believe it's Ronin or something that basically distributed this. They also did another double bill pack as well with Tai Chi Master and the Fist of Legend double bill pack in the US, because the UK release have also had, like, you know, independent releases with the kind of basically Hong Kong Legends kind of Blu-ray editions that have come out at the time. Basically, essentially DVD upscales. The first film for this was released in the UK on but it's basically just a DVD upscale essentially. And this has the exclusive second feature film, which has never had a Blu-ray release before, and they've managed to get that kind of transferred. They managed to make a deal and do a double bill pack together with 1 and 2, which is very, very exciting. So here you go there. And confirmed, if anyone's thinking, this is a region-free set, and it's only one disc, or both films are on the same disc. So it is region-free A, B, and C. So if you're curious about checking out both films and having some pretty decent extras as well, the extra features on the first film are quite extensive. It's quite a lot. There's only a trailer, unfortunately, for the second film. But in terms of the transfers, I'd say it's decent enough. I mean, like, the first film, I think, has slight tweaks, slight improvements. The second film has nothing to compare it to, because I don't think it had a major Blu-ray release, so it had only a DVD release at the time. So definitely an improvement, but don't expect kind of like Eureka 88 film level kind of quality of transfers. These are basically getting these films onto a disc, doing the best they can with the kind of probably the equipment and what resource they have, and just to kind of package together for a reasonable price. So to get the actual films, to see them with kind of the original subtitles as well, which is always good. One thing I will point out though is on the second film, the subtitles don't automatically play, which is very strange. You kind of have to kind of manually go into the kind of settings and find the English kind of track subtitles to actually go onto. It doesn't feel like organically kind of embedded into the actual code of the film. Where the first film, you play it straight away, automatically get English subtitles. The second film, you have to kind of search for it, and it's not really like an immediate option, which I thought was really, really strange. But apart from that, transfers are decent enough for what they can be. You know, they definitely could look better. I wouldn't be surprised if Eureka did a kind of double bill pack at some point down the line. Here, the 88 films have done Last Year of China. So between the two companies, one of them will do this double pack in the UK for sure. But for the meantime, this is definitely a good one to get, and it's quite a reasonable price as well. So let's dive straight into the video. Let's talk about the first entry, The Legend of Fong Sai Yuk. As mentioned, both films were released in 1993, which means both films were filmed and put together and edited in quite a quick succession. You know, Hong Kong movies, back in the time, were pumping out these films very, very quickly, and definitely during the kind of late 90s, it was definitely a new wave of these kind of wushu kind of action kind of movies with, period kind of paced dramas and kind of action movies with Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon around the corner, and obviously Jet Li being massive, massive success with the Once Upon a Time in China series, and doing a lot of the venturing into kind of more comedy kind of wushu kind of movies, still keeping in line with his kind of period face kind of persona. And then obviously we know later on with reviewing the kind of heroes and villains set from Eureka, venturing into kind of more contemporary, more modern kind of action movies. So he was really on fire and really doing a lot of these kind of period movies, and I've covered a few of them now on the channel, which is very cool to check out and see different levels of his performance and his comedy style and his action, and which kind of choreographer kind of treats his sense of style and his timing and what he is kind of known for, and does so well with these kind of movies. He feels very comfortable, feels very organic with these films, and this is no exception, absolutely. And this is his second legendary kind of folktale hero that he's played next to the kind of Once Upon a Time. And this film is no exception. Jet Li is having an absolute blast in this film. He's having a lot of fun. The first entry in this one is really surprising how well kind of put together it is. And it's not only is it very funny, it's also very charming. It's also kind of got this really kind of great kind of chemistry between Jet Li and the actress who plays his mother in the film, Joseph Fong, if I'm saying it correctly, where she's absolutely brilliant. And I would happily say, I'm going to say it straight away, that she steals a lot of this film in terms of the screen presence, in terms of her attitude, in terms of her kind of martial arts, the banter, comedy that happens between her and Jet Li. This kind of really interesting, really kind of charming, fun, and really kind of strong kind of son and kind of, you know, mother kind of dynamic is really fantastic. And it's really the highlight of the film for sure. There's so many positives towards the film, not just alongside that, but in terms of a kind of a 2-hour kind of, you know, action kind of period kind of paced drama adventure, you know, going into kind of like, you know, these imperial kind of, you know, takeovers, and touching upon some of the kind of key points that was going on during the time period of this point, and especially with the Once Upon a Time in China series, with this idea of kind of emperors kind of taking over and wanting loyalty and respect, and different kind of class systems, and, you know, being the fact that Jet Li's character and the mom and the father is basically kind of struggling to kind of maintain their kind of, you know, their status, their kind of, you know, reputation, you know, being the fact that the mom is just as much of a mischief kind of, you know, martial arts kind of, you know, up to no good kind of character, just as much as Jet Li is absolutely hilarious and really funny. And this was very different, very fresh compared to what we've seen before. And the comedy is really funny, very inventive, very creative, especially with the martial arts fight sequences, the drama, the kind of the positions that both those characters are in during the points of the films, especially with the father status being part of this kind of, you know, resistance kind of group who's basically wants to take over, wants to stop the emperor from kind of, you know, taking over kind of certain territories. So this is kind of really kind of underlying very serious kind of, you know, political kind of, you know, movement that's happening, and while having this kind of wushu kind of comedy and kind of, you know, flirtation back and forth, especially with Jet Li's kind of falling in love with this, this princess, essentially, this kind of, you know, high middle class kind of, you know, woman who's basically been offered up to anyone who can take on basically her mom. There's a point of the film where you introduce these characters that have middle class kind of status. You know, you think, oh, this is going to be the villain for the film, but no, he's actually surprisingly not. And he's someone who's very arrogant, someone who's very kind of like, you know, I want respect, you know, how dare they don't give me their land, and, you know, how dare they kind of challenge my kind of, you know, authority, very arrogant prizes in terms of the, you know, left and right kind of turns that I really wasn't expecting, and definitely makes a lot more kind of engaging for a 2-hour movie that kind of throws in a couple of kind of curveballs that you don't expect. And here's kind of, you know, idea, and well, we kind of suggested idea is basically, you know, I'll go to the townsfolk, I'll go to the kind of the poor, the lower class, and say, hey, let's have a martial arts kind of tournament, and whoever can defeat my wife, who is also an expert martial arts fighter, which is kind of funny, you know, basically can marry my daughter. And, you know, Jet Li signs up for it, and they have this absolutely amazing, and one of the highlights of the actual film, this fantastic kind of open crowd kind of fight sequence that starts off in this kind of like, you know, tower, wooden bamboo stick kind of tower, and leads into people's kind of heads and shoulders. And there's a fantastic back and forth fight scenes where basically they can't land on the ground because they essentially will lose the kind of the tournament and lose the chance to kind of marry this woman. And it's really fun, and it's really kind of engaging to watch. You know, each character is kind of really well handled and really well defined in their position in the film, and, you know, everyone gets an equal amount of screen time. In terms of a single entry, in terms of just a first movie going in without kind of acknowledging any kind of sequels, this is a great film. This is a really strong film. Great storyline. It has great characters. It has great comedy. It has great high stakes. You know, it has really creative kind of, you know, kind of storytelling, not within its action, but also within how it kind of throws a couple of curveballs here and there. It definitely is trying to say something about what the time period was. This kind of idea of kind of fighting back for your kind of country, for your honor, for your kind of status, for your land. It has a really strong message behind it, and it has a lot of, you know, great fight sequences throughout, and they definitely kind of some great kind of comedy quips back and forth. It's a really fun film. The actress who plays Jet Li's mom is an absolute highlight of the film. She's absolutely stealing the show. She's absolutely stealing the film for me. And, you know, the fact that you got Jet Li and her just kind of really kind of chewing the scenery, having a lot of fun, doing some really kind of outlandish kind of comedy, including a drag sequence, which I thought was really funny. Some brilliant kind of chemistry between Jet Li and the love interest as well. Great supporting cast, just a really fun film, just on the same level as some of the other great kind of Jet Li films I've seen recently. And the second entry is called Legend 2. They kind of dropped the title name of our main leading character, Jet Li plays, and is calling it Legends 2. I think it's got a few different titles in different kind of territories, but this one is called Legends 2, and it is a direct continuation from the ending of the first film, which leaves it not on a cliffhanger, but leaves it on there is another entry to be told, essentially. It kind of wraps up its core storyline, its core kind of message, and what it's trying to say, what it's trying to do at the end of the first film, but leaves it open to another chapter to be told with him, Jet Li, joining the kind of society and basically taking the fight back to the Emperor that she's going to be building up to. It definitely feels like a second entry, middle entry of a trilogy, but weirdly enough, they've never got a third entry, which is really strange. It definitely feels like there's one more kind of big epic kind of conclusion to this kind of storyline, filmed and kind of put together at the same time as the first one. And I think you can tell that with this film, because I think the second entry is definitely a bit of a step down compared to the first film. Second entry is kind of like more of a meddling kind of like, just kind of typical kind of side project kind of entry. It's really strange because it's a shorter running time as well. It's 90 minutes. It takes its real time with the kind of like, the drama and the conflicts that happen. Jet Li joins the society, and there's a already beefy hands with some of the upper kind of, high ranking kind of members of it. And he wants to kind of prove himself while being recently married to the woman of his love interest from the end of the first film as well. And that cruises some challenges that happen within the film. And, there's a series of kind of hijinks and kind of, really convoluted kind of plot points that do happen towards that, with him having really strange kind of rivalries with some of the high class kind of members of the society, and then him having to kind of get this box back that is very crucial to basically our main kind of leader, who basically has like kind of a dark secret past, who is a secret heir to the Emperor, which also leads to why I think there's definitely a third entry that should have been placed, because there is a much bigger kind of focus on that character, the current leader. That this doesn't go well, it's an opportunity to get it back, but has to basically get it back essentially by marrying this kind of one of the enemy's kind of Japanese kind of daughters, and go through another martial arts kind of trial again, go through another kind of convoluted, trying to take out the competitors, and basically leading up to a secret mission where he basically has to, the exact same plot point again from the first film, but just done a bit more kind of meh kind of thing, a bit more mediocre, not as well handled. Still fun, still got some great action, still got some great kind of fight sequences, but nowhere near as interesting, and just a lesser version of the first film. However, I will admit they do bring this kind of plot point back towards the end of the film, which I did appreciate, but I think it should have been used and should have been told and weaved into the story a bit more, and you could have acknowledged it a bit more and have a bit more fun with it, because essentially he has to kind of win this kind of tournament again to marry this kind of enemy's kind of daughter to get the box to get back to the society. The plot for this film is completely bonkers, and doesn't really make a lot of sense, and it takes way too long for the story to really kind of get going. And I'm thinking, this is a shorter film and you're wasting so much time on this kind of smaller stuff, and then when it gets to the bigger things, it's kind of brushing past it. And granted, I did like the overall third act. I thought the finale was very good, and how far some of these characters are willing to go for power, and it kind of shows the internal kind of problems that going on within the kind of the secret society, this kind of resistance kind of group. There is bigger issues at play, and I like that. It definitely feels like, again, a middle entry where it's kind of the kind of resistance itself has been put on a kind of trial, on a pedestal, and the internal conflicts and the kind of bitter rivalries on who should be boss, who should be leader, and who should get what information, who should know what kind of thing, is all put into kind of challenge and all put into kind of question, and it makes for a stronger kind of group by the end of the film, which I kind of appreciated. One of the bad guys does manage to take over, and it's up to Jet Li to kind of basically stop him and kind of use his kind of talents in place. There was some pretty harsh, kind of more harder kind of martial arts kind of action this time around. Some of it is pretty surprising, but yet characters quickly heal, or define belief, or define logic, or define actual healing in general. Overall, Legends 2 is a decent entry, but nowhere near as good as the first film. It definitely feels like a middling kind of second entry, kind of middle chapter of a trilogy that never became a trilogy. Some very questionable decision making. Script is very messy, very convoluted. Action's still pretty solid, still pretty fun, but nowhere near as creative or kind of completely out there compared to the first film. Apart from that third act sequence, which is absolutely brilliant. Some of the kind of internal rivalries and some of the pacing and some of the choices made, I don't think was well done. It definitely feels like a kind of a rush kind of sequel from the success of the first film. I don't know if it was made at the same time or not, but it definitely feels like we need to get this out quick kind of thing. And while it's a fun second entry, it's nowhere near as at the same level as the first film, unfortunately. Love to know your thoughts and opinions, guys. Please comment down below. See you in time, guys. Amphlett Reviews. Signing out.